Okay, I'm just going to go over a problem I had with a Miracle A7 machine and the fix. The other day it was super cold out here. I think it was minus 12 degrees and the wind chill was around 30 below. I had a job to do, and the Miracle machine, when I first fired it up, I turned it on. See how it moves? Okay, so when I first fired it up and it moved like that, there was like some clicking sounds, and it was because it was so cold. So I had to warm up the van first before I actually used the machine. And then when I went to use the machine, what it was doing, it was making the first pass on the laser cut key, but then when it made the second pass, it wasn't coming to the right point. It was starting way out here and then coming in, so it was cutting the key wrong. And then sometimes I would get this error. It would say Y-axis error. And so I was like, oh, you know, I bought this Chinese machine. I've had it for a year. It's been working great. And now what am I going to do? So what I did, I solved the problem. I pulled, I have it mounted back in my van, but I pulled it apart. And there's a panel on the back and there's a panel on the bottom. And I removed both those panels. And once I removed those, there's tracks that down in here, if you can see that little bar right there, there's tracks the stepper motor, like guides the stepper motor moves in. And they have grease in those guides, and it's some kind of real sticky grease. It almost reminds me of the grease that they put in these Chinese quick-set locks right on the tail pieces. On the inside of the lock is this real sticky grease. And all I had to do, and I figured, oh yeah, that might have something to do with it because it's been so cold and that grease got thick. You know, all I did was I sprayed those down with WD-40, those tracks, very lightly, and it thinned out that grease a little bit, and now the machine's just working perfect. So if you have that Y-axis error, and I suspect it's going to be a problem on every one of these machines because they probably all use that same grease. It really probably should be something like white lithium grease in there, not this yellow sticky. I mean, it's some sticky stuff. So that's, and I don't know if I'll have to do it again. Sometimes WD-40 evaporates. Hopefully it thinned it out enough. But I just cut like 4 keys yesterday, and every one worked perfect. Prior to that, everyone wasn't working because that grease, what was causing it, it was causing the Y-axis not to move correctly, and it was not out of calibration. No matter how many times I calibrated, it wouldn't work. So all I had to do was pull it apart. I oiled up those tracks with a grease, and it solved the problem. So it was a simple fix. I did panic for a short time because I really depend on this machine because it's my only laser cut machine I have on my van for doing these auto keys, and I do quite a bit of them. So it is a great machine. If you have that problem, that's probably the solution. If you get that error where up on the screen when it goes to cut the key and it's almost done and it comes up and says Y-axis error, you're going to go pull this apart, you're going to oil, thin out that grease that's on those tracks, and then turn it off, turn it on, recalibrate it, and it should be perfect. So hopefully that helps somebody. That is, and there's no videos on if you had that error, so that's what all I had to do. And the machine's back up and running, working perfect. I've cut literally hundreds and hundreds of keys on this machine, and it's given me no trouble. It's been an absolute pleasure using it. It's not super fast. I run it about medium speed. There is a faster speed, but then you tend to go through cutters. And that's the other thing. When these cutters, I buy them. I go through about a cutter every 100 keys, and I buy these cutters by the pack. They're very, very cheap, you know. And the probes, I'll buy the probes by the pack. The only reason you ever got to replace the probe is if you forget to put your cutter in and you go to cut it with the probe in, it'll break or bend your cutter or your probe. But they are a carbide cutter. I just buy them off of eBay. I forgot what the price is, but compared to everything else, they're super cheap. Everything for this machine is cheap. I pretty much use 2 different clamps. I have a Tibby clamp I bought that mounts in there, and it's a machined clamp. It's very nice. It was real cheap, and it works great. And then my HU66 clamp for the Volkswagen keys which is, you know, it's all made to fit in this vise. So they really did good with these little jig clamps, and both of these I got off of eBay. So anyways, if you have that Y-axis error, it's probably that grease that's got stuck. If you're down south, you probably will never have that problem because you're in a hotter environment. But up here where it gets cold, that grease gets thick, and that would be your solution. But anyways, that's just a little review and what I had to do to fix my Miracle 7. Signing off.